How long does liquidation really take?
So the timescales it takes to actually put the company into liquidation from the date that we are formally instructed. So, but you've got a gap between that. So you probably got maybe a conversation that I'll have with the directors initially. They'll pick up the phone and we'll have a chat, and then I'll send them more information so they can go off and do some research. They're going to go and think about that and digest it. And
Yep.
then there may be quite a delay before they potentially come back to me, or they may be really quick and say, do you know what? Already knew I wanted to do this. I just wanted to check over, sound you out or what have you. So then you've got that gap. And then they come back at some point and formally instruct us. And then from that date, depending on how proactive and how quickly the directors want and are able to give us what we need to liquidate, we can liquidate as quickly as 2 to 4 weeks. Exactly as you've said, we've got to take time to gather the information from the directors. We have to produce what's called a director's report, or the directors have to produce it, but we help them draft it basically based on the information provided. The directors also have to provide a document called a statement of affairs, which is a little bit like a balance sheet,
Yeah.
again based on the financials. And sometimes they have to go back to the accountants for help with that information, and so more information gathering exercise. So that takes time, but usually on average, within about a month from the date we're formally instructed, you can liquidate it. So in their heads, the directors think, great, this is all going to be done and dusted in a month's time. Off we go, and we're off to the races. But then we're actually appointed as liquidators, and now we've got all of our statutory duties. So first of all, we've got to realise the assets, and that may be, for example, in your case, a director's loan account. Well, in order to do that, we need to establish what figure we think that is. So that means part of our investigation will be to go back and look at the last set of accounts. And they're never recent and tidy and up to date. They're usually over a year out of date. So then we have to look at the bank account transactions and everything that's happened in that period since, which may be a year or more.
Mhm.
So obviously that takes time. We like to try to do that within the first 3 months if we can, because within the first 3 months, we then have to report our findings to the insolvency services, because they then have the power to fine or disqualify or pursue directors if there's been misconduct. Obviously, if there hasn't, then there's nothing to worry about. But we have to do that investigation first, and it takes time, and we might need more information. We might need to go back to the accountants, we might need to ask you for an explanation, all those sorts of things. And then take time to realise the assets. In some cases, there may be a dividend that we have to pay, which means chasing creditors for their claims, all of those things, producing a report to the creditors, say what we've done. And then even when we're ready to close the case, exactly as you pointed out earlier, we've got to give the creditors 2 months notice that here is our final report, and we're done and dusted. And then 2 months later, we write to Companies House to say we're off, we've finished the liquidation, and then it takes Companies House another 3 months to dissolve the company.
Mhm.
So on average, most liquidations, you're probably looking at 6 to 12 months before they're closed. And that's even with a sort of very simple in and out liquidation. Of course, if they get more complicated, if there are some claims of misconduct we have to pursue, or maybe there's some assets like construction retentions that might not be due yet, all sorts of things will lead a case to be kept open longer.